Hello, and welcome to another episode of Marriage on a Tightrope.
We've never done that.
No, we haven't. I'm Katie.
Allan, I am.
And we are not in sync.
But we're still married, that's good.
Uh-huh.
You know, we have a wonderful interview for y'all today.
Also, probably one of my favorite interviews. I know we say that every time, but their story is just incredible.
We mean it this time. We'd like to formally apologize to all couples we've ever interviewed. You are second tier to this couple.
Oh, jeez. I wouldn't say
that. Is that harsh?
that.
Well,
that was harsh.
You know, I just tell it like it is. We're going to be joined today by Tyler and Tara Briggs. We won't spoil any of their story in this introduction. We'll let them do that themselves. But we do have a few announcements we'd like to get to. And these are important. Don't skip ahead. Especially this first one is time sensitive because on October 9th, which is this coming Saturday, hopefully for you in the future. Nope. But this coming Saturday in our world.
October 9th.
We have a meetup in Utah County at 7 p.m. at the business Alianza. That is in Pleasant Grove. Now, Katie, can you tell them a little bit about what we're going to do? Then we'll give them the address.
Sure. So this actually is a meetup for anyone who lives in Utah. We know people that are going to be in town from out of town that will be here during that time, and they are going to come to the presentation, and that's what it is. Allan and I did a presentation in St. George about mixed faith marriage. We take the survey results that we got from 515 respondents and go over those results and talk about how that's a positive thing, how it's a positive thing in our community as well as our marriages. And so it's about a 45-minute presentation. We'll do a Q&A after, and then after that,
Meet and greet.
We let you loose to meet other people.
That's right.
And if you don't want to stay for the meet and greet, but you do want to come listen to us speak, we would love to have you for any or all part of it.
Yeah, you know, we've had a few people ask us if they could invite family members or even bishops to come, and absolutely. We give you we're the only presenters. And if you listen to the podcast, hopefully you know that you can trust us with the ears of your loved ones and leaders. So if anyone would like to bring anyone else or extend this invitation to those outside of the group, they're absolutely welcome. I think that awareness of mixed faith is super important.
Right. And especially if you have a family member, a mom, a sister, anyone that is really just trying to understand where you're at, this might be a really good reason to bring them. So don't feel like you have to come alone. And if you want a support network to come, they are welcome as well. The only thing that we are asking is to just bring a treat to share.
Bring a dessert.
There will be drinks provided, but yeah, bring a dessert to share. And then we can stay as long as we want to.
We're so grateful, by the way, to Brian at Alianza for offering up this space. We're very, very lucky. So it is Suite 500 when you get to that building. You've seen the building off of I-15 if you're headed down to Pleasant Grove or up to Pleasant Grove, depending on where you're coming from. But the address is 1064 North County Boulevard, Suite 500 in Pleasant Grove, Utah. We do ask, we'd love to get a head count. So if you can go to the Facebook group, Marriage on a Tightrope, go to the events page and RSVP if you're coming. We'd love to know just about how many people are going to be there.
That's right.
Do we need to talk about my armpits in St. George? I need to choose a different shirt.
That was a really bad segue.
Oh my gosh, you guys. We don't need to get into it super deep and talk about it forever, but I wore a shirt. I mean, thankfully I was wearing a shirt. But at the presentation in St. George, there's about 150 people there. I don't get nervous, but I sweat really easily.
Oh, it was so bad.
My shirt
the whole thing was soaked.
Drenched. And there was no hiding it. So I just had to call attention to it and say, look, this is who I am. So
and then
take it or leave it.
As soon as the presentation ended, Allan ran to the car, changed into a t-shirt because he was like, I have got to get out of this. So maybe you'll pick something more moisture wicking, Allan.
That's true. I need to wear an undershirt.
An undershirt.
An undershirt.
Okay, the other announcement we have before we get to this awesome interview is we are going to have a women's retreat in January. We have not decided on a date yet. It will probably be the latter part of January, but this will be a retreat for anyone in this mixed faith community. But we wanted it to be accessible to both post-Mormon, active believing women, nuanced women. I think that a lot of people fall in sort of like this gray space, and it's not like all in, I'm going to an LDS church thing, and it's not all out, I'm going to a Thrive event. If you fall somewhere in that realm of I'm all in, I'm all out, and there's gray in between, this will be for you. Because
so is it not for full believers then?
It's for full believers. Okay. I just said that.
Okay, so it's for everybody.
It's for everybody.
So if you're all in or all out or in between.
Or in between.
Perfect. Perfect.
So it's for anybody.
But not for men.
Not for men.
Okay.
This is women only. And the cool thing is I've asked women in the group who have professional expertise in certain things to come and present and to do just a really cool retreat for all of us. And there'll be some professionals there. I've already talked to Janice Spengler, and I think it'll just be super positive, a good way for you guys to mingle and get to know one another, and specifically for those in a mixed faith marriage, because there are so many challenges that come with that. But what I need from all of you is we are looking for a venue. We have decided it's going to be a day retreat. It's a lot to try and coordinate people's overnight schedules. If you do have like some sort of cabin and you want to offer it up or something like that, let me know. But please email me if you have connections to a venue, or you would like to offer a large home for as many women as we can fit in there to do this retreat. That would be really helpful.
And hubbies that are out there listening, be supportive when this comes around, and be the parent that you are, and cover the load for for that day. Shuttle off to soccer practices. I assume it's going to be on a Saturday, but who knows? We'll see. More details Saturday. Forthcoming.
That's right. All right. I think those are all the announcements we have. Enjoy this episode with Tara and Tyler.
We're joined today by a wonderful couple. Guess what?
What?
Okay. So we have our course with Natasha.
Yes.
Right? And we have a number of couples that we've gotten close with because of that course. We have this Calendly link that you can go out to and sign up for a time to be interviewed by us. And here we are sitting about a week and a half ago, or maybe it was a few weeks ago anyway. And we get this email that says, Tyler and Tara Briggs want to be interviewed. And we just went, ooh, this is going to be fun.
No kidding. I was jumping for joy, and I was telling all my friends about how I'm so excited for this interview.
This is not for anyone listening. It's just for Tyler and Tara. So please mute for the next 15 seconds, all the listeners. We loved getting to know you in the course and think the world of you. You're awesome people. Can't wait for people to get to know you. And welcome to Marriage on a Tightrope.
Thanks. Thank you so much. Happy to be here.
Yay.
What and why? Why did you want to come on?
Yeah. What makes you want to tell your story?
Well, I think we loved your course. And I think that we can all learn from each other and from each other's experiences. And I think that one of the important things about being in a mixed faith marriage is having empathy for each other's situation. So we just thought it'd be fun to tell our story. Is that all right?
Yeah, for me, the Marriage on a Tightrope course was life-changing.
Yeah.
And it really kind of helped us get back together as a couple. And I think, for me anyway, I realized that, well, we're not as far apart or different as I used to think we were.
Yeah.
So we loved the course.
Yeah.
So
we're so glad that you loved it. And honestly, you only get out of it what you put into it. And you two certainly put quite a bit in.
Yeah. And I think that you were really good examples for a lot of the other couples as well, because we'll get into it, but everyone has challenges. But I feel like the two of you have worked through so much more than just mixed faith. And so it's kind of funny that you're like, well, this helped us so much. And well, I think in return, it helped us see how you guys worked through it, and you worked through so many other things, and we're going to get to it. And why don't we just start?
Quite the teaser.
I know. Why don't we just start with Tara? Tara, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
So I am a preemie. We're both preemies, and we were both 2 pounds 4 ounces. And
twins.
I was a twin, actually. So when you're that little, you have a 50-50 chance of surviving. And my twin didn't survive, and I did. And with that little, you have no development in your lungs. And so I was on oxygen, and that caused retinal detachment. So I am blind from birth, and my eye condition is called retinopathy of prematurity.
Gotcha.
My parents, my Mormon story is what happens when an agnostic and an atheist meet at a Mormon church dance. Me,
you is what happened.
So I was raised a very strange kind of Mormon, which is, I have teased my mom with this, but I've said, Mom, my parents didn't stay together. They were divorced by the time or shortly after I was born. And I've said to my mom, as a single parent, you looked around and thought, okay, who will watch my kids the longest? The Mormons. All right, you're going there 3 hours a week. I need a break.
Every Sunday. That's right.
So I actually do have pioneer ancestors on her side of the family, but she's always been a non-believer. She had feminist issues with the church. Didn't like the fact that women couldn't have the priesthood. And but the neighbors were going, and so we went. We would go to sacrament meeting, and then she would go on a long exercise walk for a couple of hours with another heathen friend from the ward. And I have this really vivid memory of being in church with her, and I was really interested in what the speaker was saying. And she's like, "Hey, are you thirsty?" I'm like, "No." She's like, "Well, don't you want to go get a drink of water?" I'm like, "I'm fine." She's like, "No, you need to go get a drink of water. Come on." We go out into the hall, and she goes, "Oh, I'm so bored in there," and you'd come home from primary, and she'd say, "Oh, what did you do in primary?" And you'd say, "Oh, we sang 'I'm a Child of God," and she would say, "Well, I'm not obeying anybody. I don't like that song. I'm not obeying anyone." So unorthodox, Tara. Yeah.
Did you feel free to just have your own opinion growing up with a mother like that?
Oh yeah. My parents are they're pretty well whatever floats your boat. So when my older brother went on a mission, so my mom was married to a guy before my dad, and they had 3 kids. And then my dad was married to a lady before my mom, and they had 3 kids. So kind of Brady Bunch, but didn't work out. And then they got married and had me. So anyway, my mom and her ex-husband are helping my brother pay for his mission. And while they're totally agreeing to it, they're also harassing him about, the priesthood temple race ban, and
right.
like, why are you believing this? But we'll pay for it anyway, kind of thing. So
spiteful support.
It was just, it's kind of, I don't know. As far as like religion goes, I have felt very supported by my parents to believe whatever I believe.
I actually think that's a really good example because so many of us, at least in this situation, only know the one way, which is both parents believing, and you have to keep believing. And now we find ourselves in a mixed faith where one parent's like, oh, maybe is similar to your mom, Tara. And the other is like, but still in the end, they're very supportive of your choice, that's a super good example.
Yeah. Growing up, my dad, he never, he's an atheist. He's been an atheist my whole life. And if you asked, questions, he'd answer, but he would just as happily drive me over to the Mormon church as he does to Unitarian church where I go now.
Wow.
Right.
Whatever you help me. Just let me know what I can do.
I think there's a difference between atheist and anti-theist, or what do they call it? Oh, darn it. Tara, you may know better than me. I can't remember. Not combative.
No, I see what you're saying.
Militant.
Like yeah.
So, I mean, he may have his own beliefs, but he's going to be supportive and willing to just allow you to be who you need to be.
Yeah, I have one believing sibling left of my 6. All 5 of us, 5 of my 6 siblings. No, I'm 7. So 6 of the 7 siblings have all left the church, and so my dad has, of his kids, my older sister is very active, very believing, and he's totally supportive of her.
Great. That is good.
Tyler, tell us about you.
Okay, so my story is a little opposite of that. Actually, completely opposite of that. I was raised in a home where both parents were and are staunch believers in the church, and we were raised that way. Baptized, did the ordinances, the mission, the temple, all of those things. I have siblings who all grew up the same way, and so we were all very staunch believers. I don't know. I served a genealogy mission. I loved that. Went to BYU as a student, and so that's where we met too. So for me, it was it's what I've known. The church is what I've known, and it's what I continue to believe.
Yeah.
Tyler, I don't think you mentioned this. You were born at 2 pounds, right?
2 pounds, 4 ounces as well.
And tell us a little bit about your disability as well.
Sure. So I have a condition called arthrogryposis. It's in the muscular dystrophy family. So I have deformed limbs and very little muscle in those limbs. So I use a wheelchair, and I require help with all activities of daily living, and depend on other people to be there to help me get up in the morning, eat meals, use the restroom. It's very, very involved. I consider myself to be independent as long as my support system is in place.
Sure.
Right. Well, I can say this without a doubt. How many times we've been on camera with the Briggs? Probably a dozen or more. Probably a dozen or more.
Yeah.
You always look dapper. You always have the tie on. You're looking fresh, Tyler, every time we see you.
Well, part of that's a function of work, and it's easy to stay dressed up even when I get home, because
sure,
a lot of work to change me, right?
Yeah, I've never learned to tie your ties. It's ridiculous. Like, I have a good blind friend that I know would teach me how to tie a tie. And it's like on my list of things to learn.
To be fair, it's difficult to tie a tie for someone else. I always have to put it over my own neck and tie it and then slip it off and
give it a torse on.
That's right. That's right.
The other day, he had some family members having a ties for him race going on, and I just put on my list of things to do. Learn how to tie a tie, and I've never done it.
My dad is really good at standing in front of me and tying the tie, in the opposite direction of himself.
Wow.
So that is a talent in and of itself.
That's a skill he mastered.
Yeah.
So.
Well, so on Marriage on a Tightrope, we have done a mixed race marriage interview. We have done a mixed orientation marriage interview. And this is our first mixed disability interview.
Yeah.
Hey, wow.
So,
cool.
Yeah, it's super fun.
You. Yes.
Personally, I'm a little upset at the scientists who ended up naming your conditions because they are difficult to remember and pronounce. I prefer I know work good. And I'm just kidding. I know work good. But anyway.
I know work good.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, I know work good, and your limbs know work good. So.
Yeah, I know work good, limbs know work good. See, it's easier to remember.
Because my eyes know work good.
Eyes know work good.
Limbs know work good.
So,
I hope the listeners out there know that we're not trying to make fun.
We have a friendly rapport.
We have a very friendly rapport with Tara and Tyler.
Hey, I will find the line. I'll find the line. I just hope I don't cross it.
No, he won't.
Let's get to the marriage part of it. So you mentioned you met at BYU. I imagine that you saw this wonderfully beautiful woman and you said, please hand me that microfiche. How did you meet?
The only thing he liked about me was my guide dog.
Oh, the dog gets all the men, doesn't it?
No, actually, like I was not. Everybody and their dog was dating at BYU, but me and my dog. Yeah. So I've used service dogs since I graduated from high school, and you had a service dog when you were 13, right?
I did. I had a service dog from about age 13 to 19 or 20. I retired him right before I started at BYU. So,
right.
So I came walking into the BYU has this just wonderful accessibility lab where every computer has the assistive technology to accommodate pretty much every disability. And so I came walking into the lab and and it was winter. And so I was grumpy because I hate winter. I do not like being cold. And
she to describe visually what I saw, she came walking into that lab, this huge old black coat, zipped clear up to her chin.
Because that's what people do in the winter. That's what sensible people do in the winter. That's what I do in the winter.
Right?
Yeah.
And she had these thick Coke bottle glasses on. And I have to admit, because of that, I thought you could see more than you could. So, and she had a scowl on her face. It's like, oh boy, what is walking into this lab?
I scowl December to April.
Yes, you do. Did you say scowled or scowl?
Scowl. I hate winter.
Good. Yes, that's true. But she reached out her hand to me to introduce herself. And again, I thought she could see more than she could. And so...
you struggle to...
I said, in my mind I was saying, oh, man, she wants me to reach out my hand and shake it. This is hard for me to do. I said, oh, hi. And it was kind of a disgusted hi. And we shook hands. What did my hand feel like to you? Did Karen I ask that?
No, of course.
No, the tiniest, coldest hand I'd ever felt because you can't wear gloves in the winter and your hands are little. So it's like, oh, okay.
Yes.
That's quite the meet cute.
It is.
Yes.
So we didn't like each other for a while.
Was it mutual or was it more like I didn't like you?
No, your assistive technology was interfering with my assistive technology.
Yes.
Assistive technology is what disabled people use computers. So blind people use a screen reader that talks and reads the screen to us at a quick rate. And you used the sticky key piece of crap that was interfering with my shortcut keys on the keyboard. Since I can't use the mouse, I use the keyboard to navigate.
Well, that's your problem.
It became my problem because you didn't turn off your stupid sticky keys.
You see, religion is the least of our problems
That's right.
sometimes.
It is. I mean, this story, it's like, okay, how did you ever get together? So
Yeah, that's great.
how did it happen?
So I started working at the accessibility lab.
In the same lab where we met.
Yeah, the same lab where you met. And I got all the crappy shifts that nobody wanted. So
she was the low woman on the totem pole.
Yeah. So I
was the highest at the time, I think.
So thanks a lot, you jerk, for
welcome.
signing the crappy shifts. So I came up one Friday night and we just started talking, and because the secret of the accessibility lab, at least in those days, is you basically got paid to just sit around and study, and if somebody walked in, you were supposed to help them, but all the employees would be annoyed with you. They wouldn't say anything, but if you actually expected help, they'd be like, really? You're interfering with my studying for biology.
She expected help every time she walked in for the first year.
I did.
Oh, go away. I'm trying to study. But anyway.
So anyway, I walked up there and we just ended up having this long conversation. Do you remember what we talked about?
Tell everything from our pet peeves to kind of our fears and dreams and I think we even went as far to talk about what we kind of wanted in someone we might marry.
Yeah.
So,
That's a usual conversation at BYU.
What's that?
That's a very typical conversation at BYU.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
That's within an hour of meeting each other. Is
That's right.
when that conversation happens.
Yep.
So we went I walked out with him to the bus, and then he asked me on a date, and I'm like, okay, yeah. So we pick a date, and then I go walking home, and then you go driving off.
No, you went back into the library.
No, that's right. Yeah, because I still had a little bit of my shift, and then you went.
I went to the bus. On my way to the bus, I was thinking, what did I just do? I've asked a blind girl out on a date. Neither of us drive.
Right.
You can't
I
feed
can't
yourself.
feed myself. What in the world are we even going to do?
Only what you really thought is what in the hell are we really going to do? But this is BYU, so you have to.
With the head.
Yes.
Right.
You filtered. So
Yes,
what was the first date? What did you figure out?
So, okay. So there's a bit of a backstory into the first date leading up to it. So I got confused.
Yeah, you almost ditched me.
I did. I got confused on the dates that we were actually going to go out. And I thought I had one more week to go before the date, and it turned out to be just 2 or 3 days away. So I panicked. I thought, oh no, I got to figure this out fast. So I asked a friend of mine if he could be our chauffeur and basically help me eat and drive. Did you drive?
So you turned this into a service project?
Yes, I did. I turned this into a service project.
I drove you. We had a miracle for one night. We had functioning retinas.
I do work good.
No. Eyes no work good.
Okay.
Eyes no work good. Actually, that's why I'm in the wheelchair.
Oh gosh.
No. But anyway, we had a good time. We went bowling, which Tara graciously put up with. Because she hates bowling.
I don't mind. I don't like the loud. The music is so loud that I don't like being in places where I'm having to yell in the ear of the person sitting next to me.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. So anyway, went to dinner. My friend fed me. We went bowling. That was fun. We put up the gutter guards so that Tara could have some success at knocking down pins. And then we went back to my friend's apartment, the one who drove us, and had ice cream and a movie. And I think he invited several other friends over at that point. And he dished me ice cream, both of us ice cream. He said, I'll come help you once I'm done dishing everyone up. Well, Tara was feeling bad that I was just sitting there with a bowl of ice cream. And
so I offered to feed it to you.
Yeah, you offered to feed it to me, and I reluctantly accepted because I thought, okay, this is going to be interesting. How is this going to work? So she fed me, and some bites of ice cream were nothing but air on the spoon. So other bites of ice cream were this gargantuous blob on the spoon. And so I don't like getting food spilled on my clothes. So I took these whole big blobs of ice cream and I ate them. I stuffed my mouth full of freezing cold ice cream because I didn't want them to spill on my clothes.
This is the greatest.
This is the best story ever.
I was having major brain freeze. Did I tell you that?
Yes, you did. Oh, that ice cream's full of brain. I mean, later we've refined the eating technique.
Yes,
a lot.
Yeah.
I mean,
But the beauty of that night and that experience, for me anyway, was a realization of, we can do this again. I kind of had fun.
Yeah. Exactly.
we hit it off well. So the next night, a mutual friend asked us how the date went, and said, it was really fun. I think we want to get together again. So he invited us over for dinner and a movie the next night. And so that was kind of a maiden voyage of really being fed by Tara, by you. And it involved some steak and I think asparagus, but some food that had to be cut. And you were really nervous, I remember. Yeah, you were, about making sure the food was cut into small enough pieces.
Oh, okay.
And anyway, again, it worked. And
now I have to remind myself not to feed other people. When I'm sitting next to someone who isn't you, I'm like, wait, they don't need me to feed them.
If we go on a double date, are you going to offer me a piece of steak, Tara?
Well, when I was at the Seeing Eye getting my service dog, I literally had to stop myself a couple of times from asking my neighbor, what would you like next? And I'm like, wait, they can feed themselves. They're just blind.
Yeah. So that brings a question to mind. One thing that we talk about a lot on the podcast is how the differences of faith, and I know we haven't gotten to that portion of this interview yet, but the differences of faith kind of force this communication to occur and force you to work through really difficult issues. Is it a similar win with the disabilities, where being forced to kind of figure it out has increased intimacy between the two of you?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think that it can, and just like being in a mixed faith marriage can do that, and also it can't. It doesn't do that. I mean, it depends on the attitude you choose to take, right? I mean,
yeah.
Yep. And I think, we've gotten to a point where we're committed to each other, and so far Tara hasn't killed me out with constant help. So, because she wants to run away. but we decided after that first and second date, what was it? Within a matter of 3 weeks, that we wanted to get married.
Yeah.
Wow.
And we did the typical BYU thing.
That was a typical BYU thing.
Okay, now let's talk about that a little bit. When you go to your parents and say,
oh, gosh,
we want to get married. And by the way, my bride is blind and my groom is in a wheelchair. I'm sure there's so many questions to be asked.
Well,
the
Katie, there are times when you really want someone to just believe in you because you don't know if you can do it.
Mm.
We got that from some people, and from other people, we got, what the hell are you thinking? Have you lost your mind? And the doubt was really, really painful.
Mm.
yeah.
And I think that's probably all that I want to say about it. Sorry.
Yeah.
But
No,
that's
dealing with
the endless doubt is the hardest part of having a disability. We deal with it all the time. I mean, we literally have people ask us if our 3-year-old child takes care of us. We've literally had that happen.
Wow.
That's so demeaning.
What is it twisting between your ears, dude?
Yeah.
It seems like all common sense goes out the window
yes, when it comes to
you're looking
disability.
at disabled people because we're
not seen as capable.
We're not seen as capable. And honestly, I think more than that, it's an embodiment of people's worst fears.
Yep.
And so all common sense goes out the window. All thought about, adaptation goes out the window, and a realization that, hey, we've been in our lives for 40 years, and nearly 40 years for you.
Yeah.
You're still a young 30s. But people seem to forget that, wait.
Maybe we know a little bit about how to function as disabled people. Maybe we know how to deal with this.
Right. Now, as I recall, some of what we did end up telling people is who were doubting was, now look, we don't know either, but we're committed to figuring it out, and we think we can. So,
I think that says a lot about who you both are and your character. And, that's, I know it's such a tender feelings and tender spot, because that would be so hurtful to have those types of comments directed in, rather than just, hey, let's figure this out. We'll support you in whatever way you can. That would be really, and Tara, I feel your heart on that. Yeah. Tell us, you get married. How long before you got married? I mean, you were dating 3 weeks and then you get married.
So we got married. We kind of dated and engaged for a little over a year. And a big part of that was because people were freaking out. And so we waited longer.
It was a time to get people comfortable with the situation. And you know what? The positive is that everybody came around.
Yeah.
And were tremendously supportive. So there was an initial shock and freak out moments, but everybody did come on board.
Yeah.
And it's been, on the whole, really great since. We've been married for 14 and a half years.
So we get married. I got, as I was about to start my student teaching, I was a history education major, a job at the Training and Adjustment Center for Blind Adults came open. That is it. They have one in nearly every state in the United States. Blindness is a very unique disability in that majority of what we do is visual. And so when all of a sudden that vision is not around, what are you going to do? The Training Adjustment Center in Utah has Braille classes, has assistive technology. So they teach you how to use a computer and other assistive technology devices. They have a fiber arts class. So that teacher, she retired after 49 and almost 50 years, and her daughter is now doing it. So she teaches knitting, crocheting, tatting, and sewing. They have a wood shop where the only specialized device is a measuring device, and the rest of it is standard table saw and all that kind of equipment. And they have a cooking class, and that position opened to teach the cooking class. And I applied, and to my complete and total shock, they hired me. I was just thinking I'd get some interview experience, and then a guy who was my supervisor called and said, "Hey, I didn't ask you a question on the interview." I said, "Oh, what's that?" He said, "Well, if we hired you, would you take the job?" I'm like, yeah, okay. And so I did that for 7 years until our oldest child was born. And then do you want to talk about what you did?
Yeah. So I was working as a student employee at BYU, and I needed a counseling internship for a master's degree I thought I was going to pursue, and that ended up being something that turned into a full-time position, and so I've worked in a couple different capacities at BYU, and I've been there for 11 years full-time and about 3 part-time before that. It's been on the whole great, and really grateful for the community I have down there.
Yeah.
I do have a couple of questions about maybe your participation in church, the both of you now as a married couple. Take us through maybe some of those experiences that stand out to you as far as you grew up very differently, right? Church-wise. So how did you come together on that? And what's your church experience been up until the faith shift, which we'll get to? I
was true blue through and through. So when you are blind and you go through the public education system, you have what's called a teacher of the visually impaired, and that's usually somebody who goes around from different schools, and they transcribe your Braille so that the teacher knows what you're writing, and they get your assignments in Braille and different things like that. They might work with students on learning Braille. I started out at the School for the Blind, and so I learned Braille there, and I don't actually remember ever learning. I don't remember learning Braille, which is kind of interesting because I went on to teach Braille later at the Center for the Blind, and people are like, "Well, what about when you learned?" I'm like, "I don't remember learning it." Anyway, so
it just came to you.
Yeah, just magic fingers. Anyway, so when I was in junior high, there was a teacher who would come and work with me, and I guess it was probably beyond illegal, but we sat and talked church for hours, and she had a very strong testimony. And then my oldest sister, who's 13 years older than I do, and she's 13 years older than I am, and she has 6 kids. She's always been a strong believer, and she's always been someone that I've really admired and looked up to. And so those folks really kind of gave me a desire to be involved and be a member of the church. So yeah, when we married, and
I remember sitting in my apartment, what eventually you moved into after we got married. I remember sitting on the couch together, and you were insistent that we read the scriptures and pray every single night. I thought, wow, okay, go girl, I can go for this. So anyway, that our church experience when we were married was good for the most part.
There's if you get disabled people together, and you can get people to open up who are of any religion, because religions are run by people, we'll start to tell you about when our religion hurt us. So you'll hear about the the choir that wouldn't let a blind member in, or the deaf person who is really in need of interpreter services and they can't get the help they need from their church, or the wheelchair user who would like to take a pee while he's at the church and there's no accessible bathroom. And you'll also hear the opposite. You'll hear the times that people were really kind and empathetic, and we've experienced both. I remember one time we went to do temple ceilings, and we weren't allowed to because Tyler uses a wheelchair. We weren't allowed to do proxy ceilings.
You were allowed to be. You were allowed to be a daughter,
and you were allowed.
I was allowed to witness.
Yeah. And then somehow that policy changed. It just changed. I don't know how it changed. It just changed. And we went in my believing days. We went to the temple. It was like our date night, and there was the most gracious sealer there who would always make sure that we got to participate. There's a little extra involved in helping you, Tyler, participate, because I have to move the kneeling bench so that you can get your wheelchair where it needs to be. Mm-hmm. But just such a gracious, inclusive person. And I would always thank him. And I don't think he got it. I think trying to be inclusive was so much a part of who he was that I don't think he understood why that meant so much to me. That still means a lot to me. Mm-hmm. But we wanted to work in the temple. Is that?
Yeah, and at the time, I'd asked the member of our bishopric who was kind of inviting people to work, and we were kindly turned down.
Yeah, not you. Now, we're desperate for young unmarried couples with no children, but
married.
Yeah, young married couples with no children, but we don't want you. We want the non-disabled people.
Yeah.
That's who we want.
Yeah.
So that is something that you continually deal with, and I don't think that the church is unique. I mean, there've been blind bishops. Tyler's in the bishopric of our ward, so you get both. The other thing that had happened to us is we went through about 5 years of infertility or trouble trying to get pregnant, couldn't get pregnant, and then miscarriages. So I'm not quite sure how to phrase that, because it's obviously different than somebody who just can't get pregnant at all. But I had 3 miscarriages, early term miscarriages, in a 9-month period.
Wow.
Yeah. And so we finally figure out what is the deal, and we are pregnant, and there's actually a living, heart-beating Marie in there, and I am just giddy. And we went to a conference at the conference center. My dad had started dating a lady, and since she's been in our lives, we've attended more concerts and musicals. That is her thing, and it's great. And so she said, let's go to this concert at the conference center, and then everybody can come over to my house and we're doing a big dinner. I'm like, yeah, let's do it. So we make the announcement that we're finally expecting, and it's successful after, 4th time's a charm. And it was cold. It was 10 degrees because it was December. It was the Christmas concert. And as we were on the plaza, we were told,
the moment we set foot and wheel on the plaza, we were told by every missionary worker there, you'll need to go to door 13.
Door 13.
Door 13. Okay. And I think we both assumed that's where they're going to handle check-in and security for the chair and the dog. Oh, and the person in the chair and the person using the dog.
We just send the chair and the dog in.
The chair and the dog are going to have a great time.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we get to door 13, and we're told to wait, and everybody else gets to go in.
We got to the door, we were asked to step aside.
Yeah.
And other people were filing into the building behind us while we sat outside
and waited
in the cold for another minute or two.
And it felt a lot longer because I knew something bad was coming. And what was bad was coming was the head of security.
For the entire, he said he was the head of church security.
And we were told that they'd had an issue with a, quote, service dog. So in a previous general conference, and so that if we wanted to come in, I could sit in a room apart from everybody else or not come in.
In a totally separate kind of annex of the building.
Yeah. Because or I wasn't welcome. And so just a brief pause, which is service dogs behave like service dogs. They don't bark. My dogs take naps during concerts. They just lay there. That's it. And if they don't do that, if they start wiggling and acting like a heathen, they don't get to come to the concert. When I get off of airplanes, people behind me will not even know that my dog was there. They will only know that I had a service dog during this whole 4-hour flight because they watched me get up and put a harness back on and walk off the plane. Mm-hmm. And that's the way that a service dog is supposed to behave. Unfortunately, there are people that are not, that are taking Fluffy into public. And so I guess rather than deal with individual poorly behaved Fluffy, the solution that was decided on was that disabled people with legitimate service dogs were not welcome to sit with everybody else. So I remember standing there not knowing quite what to do, and my dad, and I will always love and be grateful for him, without asking anybody what to do, he just said, well, here's your tickets. And we left. And I cried and cried. And I had not cried that hard until my previous, my last miscarriage was the time I cried that hard. I mean, everybody here is familiar with the shelf, right? The shelf of doubts, the shelf of, I'm not sure about this one. And that's the moment my shelf just shattered into a million pieces. And I don't think I was consciously aware of it. But it felt like if I stick around in this religion, it's going to continue to hurt me because of who I am. That's the way it felt to me.
Had there been experiences prior to this that kind of led to that big shelf break?
Oh, I mean, the not being able to do temple ceilings,
okay.
And then we could do temple ceilings, but you kind of have a question mark, the not being able to work in the temple. But I had wanted to serve a mission. I was told no. I mean, the Church and Blind Missionaries is just this complicated thing because they've had incredibly successful people go. My first supervisor at work was the guy that got all the hard companions because he just was good. I mean, he was just good with people. He just was. And
he was blind. Yeah,
he was blind as a bat. He didn't have any eyes. And so, but then you get the people that don't have the best social skills and don't have the best independent skills, and and that becomes a challenge. And so, and then the race temple priesthood ban was a big issue for me. I mean, I don't know what I don't know what people look like. I always feel sort of uncomfortable when I'm around sighted people and they start commenting on somebody's appearance, or, oh, that person's such a puffball, or they need to, I don't know how to relate to that. I mean, I can be as judgmental as the rest of the population, but you got to open your mouth first, man. I mean, you got to. Yeah. And so to judge people based on their appearance, whatever that is, has always been something that's really, I'm just really uncomfortable with it because it just goes over my head. I don't understand. And so that was a real struggle for me. I don't know what color somebody's skin is or what they look like. I don't care. It just doesn't matter. And so I was like, wait, what is up with this? later I became friends with a really beautiful musician by the name of Jed Moss, and he was Ballet West's piano player, and my flute teacher introduced all of her students to him. I mean, I can't even speak highly enough about him. He was so kind, and he really had an understanding that I play music by ear, and he seemed to get when I could hear the way things fit together and when I couldn't. And he was gay, and you start to hang out with somebody like that, and you start to open up your mind about that. Just, oh, well, it doesn't, this is just who you are. And he talked about why he had continued to play the piano after playing with Air Supply, and that he'd been kind of looking into UPS, driving delivery trucks. And he sat down with his husband, and his husband, I guess they're partners in because gay marriage hadn't been made legal, but his husband's like, look, you're a musician. That's who you are. Let's work together to make this happen. And he ended up doing freelance in Utah and was really successful. I mean, that's my recollection of the story he told me. And then in 2019, he died of cancer. And at the end of his life, he got to have what we all hope to have, which is a loving spouse who helps you through the kind of difficult experience. And then for some crazy reason, there's like a ton of transgender folks in the blind community. And I kind of started hanging out with those guys. And one of them was my friend that we studied for the GRE together. And he was very open about his story. And so that's just been another kind of a shelf breaking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tara, did you communicate to Tyler how you were feeling all along? Or Tyler is this? Okay,
Sorry, Tyler.
So Tyler, I want you to take us through, how do you talk about this? And what was the moment that Tara came to you and said all the feelings she had?
Oh man. I remember, I remember, I knew something was going on because
I started swearing more.
Well, yeah.
That wasn't because of the kids, Tara.
Oh well,
that's my excuse.
Yeah, yes. But no longer were we praying or reading scriptures together, and that was a call you had made, not wanting to do that anymore. And so I just thought, okay. And I had no idea where to go or how to navigate from there. And it was just it was a taboo subject for a couple of years even.
Yeah, what happened from I'd started staying home with our child, and I went from constant people, like 12 hours a day. When we walked to the train to take public transportation, Tyler says hi to everybody. And it dawned on me after several years of you doing this, that he's saying hi to all the people that are staring at us. And so then people start becoming more comfortable. And so then you have train friends, and they, you're passing around cookies at Christmas and
birthday cards.
And then you go then I would go into the center, and there were all these students, and I liked all these students. It was so fun to watch them get their life back together. And, and then there were colleagues there that were really fun to hang out with. And when I taught the cooking class, everybody hung out in my kitchen at lunchtime. And so I was just people. And then all of a sudden there's just this baby who's pooping a lot. And so I started listening to Mormon stories.
Yeah, of course. When you get stressed about kids, you listen to more stories. That seems logical.
I was bored, man.
I was
so freaking bored and isolated and depressed. Like, I can't just jump in a car and go wherever I want to go. I'm stuck at home.
Yeah.
You know, I asked Maria how to solve the national debt, and she didn't have any answers. Just
Maybe she did, and she communicated it, but you didn't understand.
Yeah, there you go. So yeah, I got into podcasts, and Mormon Stories has these insane 12-hour interviews, but to me that was wonderful because as a blind person, I listen to stuff really quick, and it doesn't. When you can speed listen, it doesn't sound fast. The only time it sounds fast is if somebody plays music. You're like, oh, that is kind of fast. But I can I can do triple, quadruple speed.
Because that's what you're used to.
Because that's what I'm used to. And if you listen to a voice a ton, you can just crank it up, man. So I just binged. Like, I didn't know I didn't really know I was losing my faith until I was in the middle of it all. Like, yeah,
and Tyler, when did you know?
I knew. Well, Tara told me a couple of years later.
Yeah, I just sort of dumped. Okay, I'm done.
Yeah, I mean, it was. I
still feel really bad about that to this day. I'm like, man, it was pretty rude.
It was something where she just came to me and said, "You know what? I don't believe anymore. I'm not wearing my garments anymore. Don't want to be tithing anymore." And it was like,
and you just need to understand.
Yeah. And I just didn't understand. So it's like, okay. And so we went on for another, maybe 5 years?
Yeah, just ignoring the elephant in the room.
Ignoring the elephant in the room.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I felt really uncomfortable talking about anything church related to Tara because I thought she didn't want to hear it anymore. So we kind of ignored the situation basically for a lot of years.
And what was there a moment or a period where you're like, you know what, this needs to change? This
COVID-19.
Yeah.
COVID.
For me, we went to a mixed faith marriage retreat that John DeLynn and
Natasha.
Julie Hanks did. And there was this moment where everybody was talking about, who they are, and you talked about the resurrection.
Yeah, I mean, one of the questions they posed, for the believers is why do you stay? And for for those who left, why did you leave? And so, we shared our perspectives, and I shared my perspective that I stay because I believe in the resurrection. I have faith that there's more than just this life. Some days living in my body feels like a prison. And for me, I hold on to that faith and hope in the resurrection and in the next life. And so that's what I had communicated in that seminar I went to.
Yeah, and when you said that, I remember the poignant moment where you asked me for a drink of water, and it's like, good grief, you're in your 30s having to ask somebody for a glass of water, and that's not easy. There's no other way to put it. It's difficult. And so when you said that, I had this light bulb moment of, it doesn't matter whether this is true or not. What matters is what this does for you.
Yeah.
And so for me, that was the point in which it's like, oh, well then, hell, stay Mormon, whatever floats your boat. But I still think we didn't know how to talk about it. And then COVID-19, and we're stuck home and still home.
And not only is it now the elephant in the room, but it's, I mean, you're in the same room. You're literally stuck in the same room,
Right.
all day, every day.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
we're forced to pick up the rug and look at the elephant crap that
Right.
we've swept underneath it for years.
Yeah.
And it was one of those things where we both talked and said, we've got to do something about this.
Yeah.
Because it's not healthy anymore.
Yeah.
And
You can only ignore problems for so long.
yeah. And so we started couples counseling with Natasha.
Of course.
And found our way to you guys.
Yep.
And we're so glad you did.
Taylor,
We are too.
Taylor, I got super emotional when you were talking about the reasons why you stay, because I think that everyone has reasons why they stay and reasons why they feel like, for my mental health, like you, Tara, I can no longer stay. And both are valid. Both of them are. But I love that, Tara, what you said, that you recognize what Tyler, even if you didn't, believe it the same way, that for him, that was something that was so, valid and important to him. And I think that that's a really good example. Tell us, what are some other things and ways you've worked through talking about, where you're both at and honoring each other where you're at?
I think that empathy means you understand even if you don't agree. So I think that's all that you can do is to try and understand. And I had to learn, I'm really good at the protective intimacy.
Yes.
I'm just, I'm really great at that. And I had to learn that, Tyler has to know some things. He has to know how I feel about certain aspects of why I have questions, not agree, I don't dump it all. If I need to do an ex-Mormon rant, I'll go on a drive with my dad.
Right.
I don't think we need to go that far, but I think it's important to understand why I feel this way, why this is an issue. And I think that if you're going to make a mixed faith marriage work, you're going to have to realize that your happy clappy romp through the Mormon forest has some weeds and some cloudy skies and some rain, and that nobody's perfect and the church isn't perfect, and as Elder Uchtdorf said, and whatever conference talk that was, we make mistakes. And at least understand why your spouse thinks that there have been mistakes made, even if you don't think there have been mistakes. And if you're the non-believer, I think you have to understand why your spouse stays in. What is it about this that is so important to you? Why does this mean a lot to you? As one of the things I've learned being a parent who can't see is asking the kids, help me understand why do you feel this way? How come you're upset? How come, what's going on here? All this, you two our kids get along really well, but every once in a while there's a moment of, we talk, not take, different things, and, help me understand what's going on. Let's talk this out. Let's try and understand where each other's coming from. Mm-hmm. And I think that's really important in any successful relationship, but a mixed faith marriage gives you an opportunity to try and be really good at that.
Tyler, what about for you?
I think for me, one of the most prominent things that has stuck out to me is that we can agree that there are concerns, that there are weaknesses, and you know what? We can even laugh about some of those, laugh about some of those differences, and it's okay. And so far, lightning has not struck either one of us.
Well, you're lower to the ground, Tyler.
Well, that's true. But I am surrounded.
You had to, didn't you?
I had to.
I am surrounded by a lot more metal.
That's a fair point.
But I think realizing, well, for me, navigating the mixed faith marriage, forced me to realize or to have to make a decision. Which is more important? Sticking to my guns about the church, or strengthening this marital relationship that we've both committed to and made promises about? For me, I made the decision that the relationship is most important. Like I said, realize that we can talk about differences, and that even going through the exercises that we went through in the course about defining values, navigating the tenders, we were actually more similar than I thought we were. And that was so incredibly helpful to open my eyes to where we were really at, because I was afraid to even have these kinds of conversations. I didn't know how to have them. I thought they would just, end up in total and utter disagreement about church and religious related things. And for me, I realized how we can have conversations and, as you guys talk about, take it to the lab. We've done that. We do that quite a bit.
And you are an excellent student using those for me statements, Tyler.
Yes, you've for me a lot. Tyler, I wanted to key in on one thing that you just mentioned. So you said you felt like you had to make a choice. You're going to stick to your guns with the church. And I imagine that if you were going to elaborate on that, well, this is me literally putting words in your mouth, so maybe I shouldn't, but that you're not going to be as flexible. It's this way. This is how it is. That's kind of sticking to your guns, or really focus on improving the relationship and leaning into that relationship. A lot of believers especially the beginning of a mixed faith marriage, there's this fear that in order for the marriage to work, I have to take the church from here in how I look at the church, which I'm holding my hand a little above my head, and I have to bring it down a few rungs where I have to be more nuanced, and they're afraid of like letting go of certain things that they hold very dear. Is that what you're saying you did and found successful, or what did holding those beliefs that you still hold, what was that like while at the same time trying to lean into the relationship? I hope that rant made some kind of sense.
No, it did. I held a belief for a long time that life, and eternities were very black and white. You live, by X, Y, and Z, in X, Y, and Z way, you achieve salvation and exaltation. For me, and this is my view, I think more than anything, what I've come to kind of understand more is that principle of agency that I think is often forgotten in very, very staunch believing families. There's the principle of agency and choice that we're all given. That includes, choice to worship and believe how you want to worship. And for me, that's what I feel like I've come to understand more about and lean on is well, Tara has a God-given right, or however you want to look at it, as an atheist, a constitutional right.
Constitutional right. I like that. I'm going to start using that one.
to believe how you want to and to worship how you want to. And who am I to say no? And more importantly, I believe that love and relationships can be so much stronger than having, than mere beliefs. And I know several couples who have divorced because of those religious differences. And I don't see that as healthy, quite frankly. And as I sit here and talk about that, I wonder if some of that goes or is because of our disabilities and the those experiences of having to fight through so many challenges together that has made us stronger and built a foundation where religious differences aren't as big of a deal for us. What do you think?
I'm in a unique situation where I know what it is to need help because our society, everybody drives and I can't.
Yeah.
And I know what it is to experience dependence, and I know what it is to experience when that help is graciously given, when it's grudgingly given, and when it's not given. For me, I want to graciously help you. In order to do that, I have to have empathy for where you're coming, for what your situation is. And so what I have needed to do is to have empathy for why you believe in a religion that I don't believe in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Because there's a part of when you leave, you're like, man, this is a bunch of crap. Why in the hell do you stay, dude? What's the matter with you?
Well, and I remember when we were talking at first, you wanted me to leave too.
Did I?
Yeah.
I think that's a pretty natural feeling. I want to just go to one of the biggest fears that people have is, how do we raise our kids now? Both of you are raising children in your mixed disability home, right? And now your mixed faith home. Mm-hmm. And so I really want to just at this point make a plug and have you guys just talk a little bit about your podcast, because they have a great podcast. Tara, why don't you tell us a little bit about it?
The podcast is, if anybody's seen the movie Crip Camp on Netflix, it's all about the disability civil rights movement. And that was a really moving documentary, because every time we go to work, go to a school event with the kids, go to a concert, go to dinner, like even our house, our condo is all due to what a whole bunch of disabled people did years before we were ever even around. So we call them our podcast Crip Parenting as a way of thanking a whole bunch of disabled people that we didn't even know about until we watched that documentary. Every podcast, I'm not a camera happy mom, obviously, but I'm a record my children happy mom. And so every podcast starts with an audio clip of the kids doing, something fun or cute, or because I've just got tons of audio recordings. It's not the best audio recording quality. It's kind of quiet and, but it's what I was able to get. And then we talked about what it's like to be disabled parents and how we adapt as disabled parents. And then we also have guests on the podcast who were just adapting with as disabled people. But disabled people it's amazing what as humans we're able to do. There are a handful of blind doctors in the United States. There are doctors with disability similar to Tyler's. There are attorneys, there are professors, there are therapists, there's all kinds of things that disabled people do and all kinds of ways we find to adapt. And so the primary focus of our podcast is on parenting. Hopefully we'll have a few less people ask us if our 3-year-olds take care of us after listening to podcasts. But anyway, and then we've also had other guests come on right now we're in the middle of publishing episodes with a blind friend of ours who's a professional woodworker. So he specializes in the lathe. That's his real passion. And he talked about losing his sight from retinitis pigmentosa. But there's also podcasts where we talk about our journey and having kids and different things. You guys actually helped inspire it, actually.
Oh.
Yeah, because I've listened to your podcast for a long time. I thought, no, we can do this.
Yeah.
Well,
and we both listened to the first episode and absolutely loved it. And we're going to be caught up. I'll be caught up. I go to the gym and I listen to, I don't do 3 to 4 times speed, but I do about 1.4. That's as quick as my brain will work. We'll be caught up really quick. We're looking forward to listening to it.
Oh, thank you.
Well, both of you, it's so interesting because a lot of the things that you talked about when you told your parents that you wanted to get married and their reactions, I can't help but draw some of the same parallels when in our own marriage, when one person says, I'm done with the church. And Allan did a lot of just waiting until I was ready to take off his garments, waiting until I was ready for him to try alcohol. And, and I think that so much of this episode is just very, very inspiring to me. And just also like the attitudes that you both have and seeing you in the workshop, seeing you do the work and seeing how you interact with each other has just been just a complete joy for Allan and I.
In a different time and place in history, we would not be here.
No. We
would not have survived. We wouldn't have been able to have our kids. I mean, we talk about it in our podcast, but modern medicine helped us have our children. I would have died in childbirth with our oldest kid.
I mean, we both probably would have.
We both would have died at birth. I mean, we would have been stillborn children.
Yeah.
And I just feel like life is such a gift. And I'm so grateful that I get to have time on the planet and be here. And I'm grateful I get to be a parent. I wanted to be a mom so much. And I'm grateful I get to be married to you. And I'm grateful for when you do the bedtime routine. I sit in front of our fireplace, eating my feet, feeling pleasurable guilt.
Are we all grateful when our spouse does bedtime?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, we want to give you the very last word, both Tyler and Tara, on is there anything else that you were hoping to be able to say or any advice? It doesn't have to be advice, but if you have any, that would be great for other couples that are just entering mixed faith marriage or struggling currently in their mixed faith marriage.
Some advice I would give is don't give up. Obviously, if people are listening to this podcast, they know at some level about marriage on a tightrope and mixed faith marriages. The resources that are available are amazing. I cannot emphasize enough how much you, Allan and Katie, have helped us. And it was like an aha light bulb times 20 million moment that oh yeah, we can do this. It takes work. I know there are some uncomfortable conversations that have to be had when you're discussing being in a mixed faith marriage or really mixed anything marriage. I mean, if I think about the disability aspect, we talked a lot about that and how we would manage that. We still talk a lot about that, yeah. But it's having to be vulnerable with each other. So don't give up. That would be my advice.
Good advice. Tara?
Mine would be have empathy, seek to understand. You don't have to agree, but seek to understand. When I think everybody can relate to the coming out as a mixed faith couple or coming out as a non-believer. And when I told my big sister that I had left, there was no anger. There was no reproach. There was no, how could you? There was no, what are you thinking? There was no, well, you're my last sibling who believes. How could you do this to me? All she said was, what happened? And I told her a little bit. And she said, well, Tara, you just can't stay in a religion where you don't feel like you belong and you don't believe. You just can't. That was it. Except one other thing. The next day, she sent me a text. And she said, I just want to make sure we're good. You're my sister, and I love you a lot. Mm. We should be that for each other. Mm. Let's do that. Whether we're the believer or the non-believer, let's do that. Let's show that kind of empathy because it's all we can do. We don't get to run your spouse's or your kid's life. They get to run their life. So what we get to do is we get to show empathy and compassion and understand why the person is on the journey that they're on.
That is the bow that we are tying quite neatly around this episode. Thank you. Great way to end the episode. We both have tears in our eyes.
Yeah.
Katie a little more than me, I'll be honest. Katie a little more than me. I do.
If people want to listen to your podcast, can you give them some information on where to listen and also how to contact you if that's something they want to do?
Sure. So our podcast is Crip Parenting. We're on Apple, Amazon Music, Spotify, and Google Play. And we're trying to get on the other ones, but we got a little bit stuck and we're going to keep doing it. And we're dropping episode 7 this weekend. It was so fun to talk to my friend who's a professional woodworker who's blind. And our email is cripparenting, CRIPPARENTING @gmail.com. And we'd love to hear from people because we've gotten one email and it was from a friend.
That's great. Please go listen. Absolutely.
Well, I think that if you love this episode and you want to show Tyler and Tara some love, definitely email them at cripparenting@gmail.com. Yes. Okay. .com. And just thank you so much for being on here. It is everything I thought it would be and more. So
it was fun.
It was fun.
Good.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah.